Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. Printing your creative projects can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed many successful Kickstarter campaigns, and a bunch of them you have heard about on this very show. And everybody who uses Mixum is extremely pleased with them, and they really produce an amazing product. And they actually offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, where you're from, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience around the world. So right now, if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com, and listeners of the show right now can actually save 5% by dropping my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab. And I know, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that, every percentage point matters when you're running a Kickstarter, because 2, 3, 4, or 5% can make the difference between you having to put money into your project or you having a little bit of money left over. And so again, that is Mixam.com. And type my name, Andrew Davis, to get 5% off your first order. And so with me, I have returning guest Shaun Keenan, and hopefully I got your name right. And I'm sure if I didn't, right, you're going to correct me. You're going to correct me if I didn't. So welcome back, because it's been a while.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. I think it was almost this time last year when I looked at our chat and everything. So it's been a massive 12 months, but super excited to be back on the show.
You know, I'm happy to have you back, and obviously a lot of stuff's going on. I was supposed to get you on for another thing, and then, well, I got busy, but here we are, and you have another Kickstarter going on, and that is Extreme Championship Tournament Monster Anthology. But we're going to put that on hold for 1 second, and I think it's going to make sense because we need to talk about the Extreme Championship Tournament series as a whole in this universe, because obviously this is sort of an expansion and a side. And so what is the Extreme Championship Tournament for those who don't know, and everything that sort of took place in that before? Because I think this is obviously rooted in it.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think this is the first time when we've ran this Kickstarter, we have actually designed a catch-up video on the Kickstarter page because XCT has been around since 2014. It's based in the year 2069, where history's greatest heroes, villains, and monsters their remains have been found. They've been recloned, and now they're being forced to fight in the most brutal sport in the world, which is called the Extreme Champion Tournament. So it follows the main character Spartacus through some trials and tribulations, where he's kind of got to decide whether he's going to fight or die in the XCT. So you know, it's been quite a successful series. Last year, we won a Best Comic Award at the Australian Film Festival on the Gold Coast, which was amazing. That was for XCT Breakout, and then now we're doing an anthology in the same universe. And the reason we were doing that was we had an opportunity to pitch this very early on to Netflix, and they said, you know, we're just going to chew through what you produced far too quickly. You need to kind of expand the story and universe out. So we'd done an anthology in 2018 called XCT Most Wanted, and this is now our second anthology in the same series. So yeah.
And so obviously, you know, you sort of answered what I was about to ask, but I'm going to ask it again. Obviously, where did this even idea come from? Because obviously you did an anthology. I think there's 2 other books in the XCT universe as well. And now we're on, I guess, the 4th or possibly 5th. You know, I'm not exactly sure how we're counting. But this is sort of weird because it is, I'm not too sure, quote unquote, canon, but you don't need to read the other things to read this anthology. But
correct,
it helps tremendously, and it also provides more insight and, I guess, more information. And I don't know how to describe it. You know, it's kind of a feeder in where you could this could be your first book, or you could have read the other 3 first. And so where did this idea come from? And I know Netflix obviously pitching needed more material, but even to do monsters and not, just a continuation of the story or, 6 other stories sort of breaking off of that other anthology.
Yeah, I think the thing I've always loved about anthologies is working with a bunch of different writers and creators. So giving them an opportunity to kind of play in my sandbox or my universe, as you say. So when we did the first anthology, we got some really great creators, and there was stories and characters that kind of came out of that I necessarily wouldn't have thought about doing in XCT. And I think that's the amazing thing of having other people come with their own creative ideas. So XCT Monsters, it's a couple of stories that we had left over from the last anthology. They were fully colored, where our last anthology was black and white. So I was like, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to do a few more stories and release another anthology. Also, as you were just mentioning, when a series has been going on for a period of time, it's kind of hard for people to know when they jump in, and that's even mainstream. Like you're reading Batman, it's like, well, where do I start? Where do I?
Yeah. Scott Snyder, 50 issues, right? You don't know where to start. You don't know what arc to start in, and then you jump into issue 13, and you don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, exactly right. So the one thing
nothing against Scott. I want to make that clear. I love Scott Snyder. Nothing against Scott Snyder. It's not his fault. It's a comic problem in general because he follows me on Twitter. I just want to make that crystal clear. It's in my cap. There's like 1,015 people he follows, and I'm one of them. So it's an award in of itself.
Yeah, and I think that's why we did this catch-up video. So we wanted to try something different to let people know a little bit about the series. So you can watch that catch-up video and go, okay, I don't need now to buy the rest of the series. I can just
jump you're wrong. You have to buy the rest of the series. We have to sell people.
That's it. Look, I understand also during COVID and just everyone's financial situations, I thought it fitted both audiences. So those collectors that want everything, we've got that at a reduced price, and you can get the whole collection. If you are someone that is like, okay, well, I can watch this catch-up video and then jump in on this anthology, then I'm happy to do that also. Or there's the people that are in between where they've picked up some issues but have missed others, and we've got those add-on rewards where you can collect everything. So I think it's a little bit difficult when you've had a series go for so long on enticing those new people and new readers without saying, okay, you need to spend $300 or $400 to read the series. So that video is really cool. It goes for about 3 minutes, but it's a animated video that kind of leads the story into monsters. So.
And to even talk about this, because it is interesting. So obviously, I'm right now very cash poor, meaning that obviously my disposable income is not where it needs to be. Earlier this year I had a little bit more disposable income, and also I'm prepping up for the holidays, and I'm anticipating that's why cash is sort of poor. I understand that in 3 months from now I'm gonna have to buy a bunch of people Christmas gifts, and so that's something that I think is in effect to some degree. Obviously, people, COVID, are still recovering, and things are crazy in the world in a lot of ways economically. And even going further into this as well with the backup issues. And I'm curious your thoughts. So you're in Australia, in case you couldn't tell by the accent. And if you're coming in at this moment, obviously, I sort of made the joke at the beginning with Mixum and my sponsor, because you're from Australia, as I stated again. It can be very, very expensive to ship to the US. So somebody in the US who didn't back the first, 4 books and backed it digitally and really liked it might say it's not economical for me to only get 1 issue at a time versus now getting the complete set, being caught up. And that's the other thing too. because that's something that I'm experiencing when I'm buying comics right now, is that I had to give up certain, I guess, tracks with comics and certain companies because 4 separate orders at $12 a shipping price, that's $48. It adds up really
Yeah.
quickly versus one price, which is something that, and so I'm just curious about that and how you feel about that and even how you're dealing with that, because obviously Australia is a cool place, but it's not the comic capital of the world. It's Japan, France, and the US.
Yeah, so for us, we've got those several different tiered options. So, for those digital backers that like their comics digitally, you can get just the graphic novel bundle by itself, or you can get the whole series digitally. And then with the physical versions, again, you've got that tiered version. So you've got the people that back every single campaign, and they'll pay the shipping to go to America, USA, France, to the
Anywhere in the
UK,
world.
anywhere in the world. But then you've got those people that are like, okay, well, I've been following along for a while, and it's like, now I'm going to jump in and get everything. So not only is that collection, probably reduced the cost in regards to if you would bought them all individually, but as you just said, you're only paying that one shipping option as well. So it works out. And then on top of that, our Australian US exchange rate is down at the moment. So all of the prices are actually about 30% cheaper for our US backers than in Australia. So that all those kind of things come into account. But at the moment, there's the most amount of comics on Kickstarter at the moment. There's over 260 comics on Kickstarter. It's a platform that has been booming. The success rate of comics on Kickstarter is the #1 success rate in all of the different categories on Kickstarter. So there's a little bit of competition now, even on Kickstarter.
Let's talk about that too.
Yeah.
I'm in competition in which that this show and live streams on Facebook are at their all-time peak. And obviously when I first started this last year in March and May and April, it was the panacea, and I was on a beach with like a whole 6-pack of beer, and it just kept replenishing, is how I'm explaining this to people. It was paradise. Okay, and it wasn't Hotel California paradise. It was pure paradise, like Hawaii paradise. And come June of last year, July, and by September, the competition increased by tenfold, and then this year it's increased by another tenfold. And Kickstarter is very much like that. And so what is that like? Because obviously I'm going to be doing something on Kickstarter in the next month to 6 months. And it's comic related, and I'm not going to go into the details, but obviously it's become a very interesting thing with all these projects now happening on Kickstarter, and more competition, and it getting oversaturated, I think, is a really good word, and it becoming somewhat unsustainable. So what is that like for you, and where do you even think it's going? Because it's a very interesting line.
Yeah, it's really changed, and I think there's no one real easy answer to that, because there's so many facets. Yeah, there's so many facets in Kickstarter that lend to that, because one thing you didn't mention in regards to more projects coming on is you're actually having higher profile people come on to Kickstarter as well. So not only are you competing with those other independent creators for like that extra dollar or anything, is that now you're competing against the likes of Keanu Reeves of Boom Studios.
Oh, we could talk about that too.
That type of thing. So it's quite interesting. I think it all comes down to building and curating your own audience. And, you can look negatively at things and say, oh, there's too many people on Kickstarter. It's, too hard for my thing to get noticed and blah, blah, blah. Well, they're things that you can't control. So I feel like you need to focus on what you can control. So that is about reaching out to people like yourself and getting onto shows like this to not only talk about your product, but to help other creators and provide some value for them. So, I think the trap that we fall into sometimes is, you reach out and go, oh, can I come on and talk about my Kickstarter? Yeah, that's great. But you also want to provide that show some value. So you want to
It's
be able
also, and on this note, because I'm now getting into this, I legitimately got 4 things. And in case anybody hasn't, and I'm going to be very open about this, I feel that everybody fucking asks, and they only ask me when they need something. And I'm the first person, and whoever's watching this and seeing this, and that's cool, and I like people reminding me. But you gotta bring something to the table. What I'm doing isn't free. And you gotta bring something. You gotta shout out. I think you should back with me on your Kickstarter. Send me an actual copy of your book so I don't have to back it. Do something for me at this point, because I got legitimately today 5 requests. And if you noticed what I've done, and if you noticed this week is the most diversified week in a while, where I'm having a wrestler, 2 cosplayers, and 2 comic people on. And that's not because that's a direct response to everybody asking. And legitimately, in the last 6 weeks, I've gotten almost 30 comic responses. And it's getting old, because the people who are asking are only asking me when they need something. And I'm glad you're asking, and I'm trying to get everybody in. But at a certain point, I'm diversifying now. There's 8 to 9 comic spots, everybody. There is not any more. And because the other 7, I want wrestlers on, and I want other outreach. And I think it's a big problem with marketing. I think it's a big problem in media. And I think this discussion needs to happen in Kickstarters. And look, there's a lot of other people who are doing it and doing interviews. And I think there's like another 20 shows, and I can name probably or find them pretty quickly. But even still, like, they're going to get sick of it too pretty soon, because when you just keep asking only when you need something, speak to me for 4 months, I notice it. And I don't know if anybody else has noticed it in my show, but there's been a diversification in the last 6 weeks. And so I think you bring up an amazing point. And it's been something I wanted to talk about for a while at this point, particularly not with you, but it's the idea that I think this is a massive problem, that I think people are saying, I want to talk about my Kickstarter, but they don't want to bring something to the table, or they don't want to thank the host or help the host. And I think it's got to be more give and take, and not take and take.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah. Sometimes I think it's you can reach out prior to your campaign starting and say, oh, can I come onto your show, talk about my upcoming project, and and then give some insight about how you go about creating a Kickstarter page, or what they've done differently, or that type of stuff, rather than just saying, oh, when my Kickstarter's live, I want to get on that. And there's a little bit of that too. I've got a Kickstarter live at the moment, and we're talking about XCT Monsters, but I also want to focus on, this is an anthology. I give people opportunities to work on my series, and a lot of the people in this either have not been published before, or are starting out in their career and everything. So, I want to highlight.
Well, we're going to talk about it. Don't worry, I promise.
Highlight that as well. But
we're gonna talk about it in 1 second, because I do want to get into the story of this, and I love talking about people's Kickstarters. But even to go further, also now I'm becoming a lot more selective, because when I get 30 requests, congratulations, I now have a lot of control, and I don't want to say no, but also I'm getting requests where people just want to get rid of their backlog with like Indiegogos, and they want to use my platform to sell their entire collection off to some degree, or whatever they printed, or they just printed another round of comics. And also, I'm interested in the project, so you got to tell me what the project is at this point too. And if I'm not interested in your project, then I don't want to interview you. That's the other thing too, is that pitch me your thing and sell to me as if a gun's to your head. and that if you mess up this pitch and you don't get me invested, that's the other thing too that I think people need to, watch. I'm going to be cutting this and editing this and sending it to everybody. So for a reason, because I think that's the other thing with creators as well. I mean, this is so important because this is so informative, is that if you want to get on my show, you have to send me a preview copy of your book. You have to make your pitch to me and sell it to me and actually tell me what it is and then get me interested. You probably should throw me a bone, whatever you think is appropriate. Not you, obviously. I like you right now, and you've been nice to me in a lot of ways. You send me a preview copy, which is helpful. And you got to tell me how you're going to help push it out, or you're going to have to introduce me to somebody. You're going to have to help me or backlink it into your Kickstarter so I can at least get some press. And I think it's a mistake that creators make, is they don't know how to speak to interviewers to make sure the interviewer feels decent about what they're doing.
Yeah. And as you said, I think it comes back to any type of transaction that you're having with someone, is there has to be some of that give and take. So, if you're asking for something, you should be also giving something in return. And, if that's someone that's got a larger platform, well, then that is what they're giving back to you. When you interview them, they're giving you a larger platform to go off. Interviewing someone from another country, that's, giving you another audience that you might not necessarily hit on that before. So you don't have to just think about it as in, what physically do I have to give this person? But as you're saying, when you're pitching to say, I would like to come on your show, you can say, I know you haven't had any Australians on before. Would you like to have an Australian on? Blah, blah, blah. I'll share it around on my social media platforms. This is the type of following I have. Those type of things, are much more, a much better pitch than going, I have this Kickstarter live at the moment. Can I come on your show? Which a lot of us, and look, I'll put my hand up and say, that's something that I fell into the trap with early on when I did.
It's also different if I put up something in a Facebook group saying, who's got a Kickstarter going on? What is it? And say, I got one going on. That's different because I'm actively asking the question. I got 4 cold messages and I got one legitly like 2 hours ago. That's different. Saying I'm launching this date. And also, people don't understand that the parameter has changed in my world, where now I'm booking 2, 3. Sometimes I have certain people booked for November that and that's what people don't understand. And I have certain people who are never ever gotten an opportunity in November, and they're taking precedent because they are like a minority of a minority. And it's going to be a big deal, and it's going to be an exciting deal, and it's going to be super fun. That interview, I'm really excited for it, but that's something that is going on. And I'll give a real quick story. I'm doing an interview on Thursday, and this person is a relatively new podcaster, and I've been in the game forever. And I'm like, hey, I could talk about alternative investing, and whenever you want to do it, you tell me, I'll be there. I can't do it Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but if you want to do it at 4 a.m, I'm in. And the person's like, you're the easiest interview that I've reached out, and that. And what I'm bringing is I'm going to be bringing my entire audience in to it, and I'm seasoned, and I'm giving a lot of knowledge, and that's what I'm bringing to the table. And whatever needs social media wise for me when it's released, I'm going to be obviously actively pushing it out into at least 10 to 15 groups, which he wouldn't be normally putting into, and he doesn't know that yet, but that's just where we're going with it. And I'm a professional, and I've been doing this forever. So that's another thing too, is that Sim says, look, I'm part of 10 groups on Facebook, and I'm going to be pushing it the second it's out there. In the first day, I'm going to be pushing it out for you. And I don't need to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. No problem. I'm going to share it into 10 groups, or if you have to do it at 3 a.m, I'm going to be there. That's something, but there's a lot of stuff, and I think creators and people like you and all the 4 people who are not watching. That's the other thing too. Watch my interviews and comment and like my page and join my Facebook group. That's another thing. It's a really good way how to get my attention is by joining my Facebook group. Okay, it sounds stupid, but it gets my attention in a lot of ways. Liking my Facebook page and joining my Facebook group gets my attention, and that moves you
Yeah.
closer to the top of the line. I wanted to
And
say this for a long time.
It's interesting because you know, you do. I've got my own Facebook page and group as well, and you do. You just end up remembering people's names because you see them liking, you see them commenting, and when they've done that a couple of times, you're like, oh, you know, I know Mark. He's you know, asked this question or done this and that type of stuff before. So that's a really good point to do as well. So.
But we're going to get out of this topic. I'm going to go on for hours on this topic, and I love talking about podcasting. And I used to teach a podcasting class, and the business deal sort of fell south. And but I love it, and I know a lot about it, and I'm more than happy to give advice. So if anybody's seeing this and wants advice, hit me up. I'll do it for free. Got no problem doing an hour Zoom call for free. For the next month, I'll leave it at that. But let's get into XTC Monsters, and there's a bunch of stories. And I want to talk about Blackbeard because I don't know if you know the flag that's on my personal Facebook page is the Blackbeard flag from One Piece, made out of Legos. And obviously, I like Blackbeard. Blackbeard is an insane pirate, insane. Fascinating individual. Used to shoot his own troops, had like 6 strains, used to light himself on fire, had like 7 guns, and great pirate, fascinating pirate. And so he starts this, and it's sort of looking for treasure, and story is a little crazy, for lack of a better word. And so how did this one come about, and what was like the planning behind it, and what's going on with Blackbeard? Because I'm not too sure what's going on with Blackbeard. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I think this story came about of just I'm a big fan of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that's the type of story that it turned into. It's like starts off with an introduction to Blackbeard and the type of person he is, and
Because he's not really a monster. I mean, he's a monster of a pirate, but he's not a monster like the others.
No, and yeah, I think that's it'll be explained in when a little bit further down the track with him. But he's the story. He's got his beard on fire, as you said, because that was I like to mix in some historical elements and then my own twist on the characters as well. But this one was drawn by Paul Mason, who does the work for Kid Phantom and the Phantom here in Australia. So, you know, super happy to have him on board. But yeah, it's like an Indiana Jones adventure type story. All these are short stories, 10 to 12 pages, introduce you to the character. But I think even with your case, it leaves you wanting more. So.
And then obviously, I'm not going to push too hard in this one, and we get into Medusa, and this one is kind of crazy because we have this sweet, angelic, woman who is very much a pacifist, doesn't want to fight, is being forced to fight in an arena. Obviously, it's this sport, and then we have a doctor who also doesn't want to force her to fight, and then, she's forced to fight, and Medusa comes out, for lack of a better word, and it really raises questions on who this character is, what the nature of this character is, and then also what the nature of the doctor is, and who's the real monsters in this story, because it really provides a lot of insight into how this tournament works and who's fighting who and all that stuff. So what was this like big picture wise as well? Because it's a very interesting story. It's a very questioning, and I think it goes deeper than just what's on the page.
Yeah, I think for this story really relates to the main XCT story as a whole, and that's because it does ask all those questions in regards to, well, who is the monster? It's not necessarily what you look like and that type of thing. So this story is like really important.
It ties in nicely to the main stuff. It's sort of the link in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah. So introduce a couple of characters that will actually be brought across into the main series as well. But yeah, it does ask that question. Well, who is the monster? And like our first anthology, there was a story about Achilles and Ennio, and it's that scene out of Terminator when he walks into the cop station and they kill everyone, but the way he's talking and communicating his story to the police officer, it's like, well, who is the bad guy here? Is it us for doing this, or is it you that sit there and watch us kill ourselves for your entertainment? So it really puts that question mark on, and I'm, you can see I love my Star Wars. It always depends on your certain point of view, and this Medusa story is exactly like that as well.
Hey, I'm just going to go out of here on a limb here and say the Empire was right and the Resistance was wrong. And I think the Resistance owes the Empire an apology. I'm just going to go say it. Empire had red lasers. Red means stop. The Resistance had green lasers. Green means go. I'm just saying. I mean, look at Vader. His daughter comes to dinner. She brings home a man, and his future son-in-law decides to shoot at his father-in-law, who's offering a very nice meal. I'm just saying, whether he knew or not, the nerve of some people. And if you think you have family problems, I'm just saying, I think Vader showed mercy. I'm just saying. I mean, if you watch Empire and you side with Han, I have to say we have a problem. I'm just saying. It's like the fastest way to get defriended on Facebook with me is siding with Han from Empire 5. I'm just saying, Star Wars. This is like a litmus test. When I get married, if my girlfriend, soon to be wife, answers this question wrong, and it's going to be asked on the altar, it's off. It's off. I'm just saying. Now, I know some of you might be very upset with this statement here, and I completely get it. I completely understand, because your wife answered the question wrong is what this is about. So anyway, enough about Star Wars and serious questions. Now let's get into some real controversial stuff, because I like to talk about Cyclopses. And I actually really like this story. This is my favorite story out of the entire book. All jokes aside and all this stuff that's going on, I really like the idea where these Cyclopses are fighting, and then brother versus brother, and the confusion. And I kind of like it because it's very, I guess, Greek mythology, and it just seems like it's fun, and it's almost like wrestling to me.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of the wrestling, the UFC, and that type of thing. And this one I felt like was a good story because it also shows, XCT and the like, where they literally just throw away these living beings as almost like trash if they're no longer fighting, or they're no longer up to the grade, which is very similar to your wrestling and UFC. You lose a couple of fights in a row, there goes your contract, see you later. You're on the heap, or you're in the second tier competition, and that's
called WWE, guys. It's called WWE.
And that's like this story. So and then to have that brother connection and everything. I was a big Hardy Boys fan, and that during the mid to late 90s. So that kind of all tied into this story, and the artist on this one is Brad Van Geest. This is actually the first comic book work he'd ever done. So super excited to kind of give someone an opportunity to draw a story and do a comic that had never done it before. So
yeah, and I just like it because I think it is really just a fun story. It's also really brightly colored, and that's the other thing that I think is nice, where we go from the Medusa story, which is dark, to this story that is very light. And it's not light in nature and what's going on, but it's also brightly colored, and it's just nice. And I like brightly colored stories. I love bubblegum thrown on the wall coloring. It's just something I like. I love, like neo cyberpunk coloring, and I love things that just pop. And I love new school pop colors, and I love saturation, and this story has that. I think it's really nice. And then this is also followed up. So what is that like to have that coloring in there? Because it is nice to have that, and that's what I like in comics in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, I'm very mindful of where I position the stories for that exact reason. So if something is more dark in tone and color, and that the next one I like to do is break it up with something that's really bright and vibrant and everything like that. So this one feels very much more like XCT, the main storyline in being that very bright. Yes, it's violent. Yes, the story is a little bit dark, but the actual colors, compensate the story with being, quite bright and vibrant and that. So I did that by bringing the colorist from our main series over to color this one, and then again that gives it that tie and feel and connection back to that main storyline and universe. So
Yeah, and I just like the coloring on it, and I like just the brightness, and I like also how it just sort of flows because it is a little bit lighthearted. Versing the Medusa, and you don't have to think it's hard. Um, and then obviously, I forget what story this is from.
that's the Medusa one, that one. So yeah.
That's from the Medusa one, and that's sort of one of the early pages. And then the final one that I can show with pictures, at the very least, is talking about the Pegasus. And this is a weird story. It's also something that's going on, and I kind of don't want to ruin some of it because I think there's some shock value that's going on. I think Hercules is in it, and we're getting a very interesting thing that's going on here. And I don't know how we can talk about it. I got a way how we're going to talk about it. Just not if it's a very light breezing story.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very good and it's very shock value, and I'm not being lazy. It's really something that is nicely done, and very interesting take on Pegasus to say the least.
And the style is very different to what we would usually do. So that's done by a Melbourne artist called Ben Sullivan, and he's very he's known for Toby and the Magic Pencil, which is a very much cartoonish style type of thing. So when he came back with this to show me, I was blown away because that was not what I was expecting at all. But it's a very throwback to that late 70s, early 80s style. And he's did all of that, the colors and everything, and it looked really, really beautiful on that one. So
And it's just very, very, very interesting and it's a unique take on Pegasus. And then we have to talk about Sasquatches because that's kind of fun too. And I don't know what a Sasquatch is exactly, but very interesting about capturing them and bringing them in because a lot of what this story is dealing with is that creatures are either captured, and this entire anthology is dealing with creatures are either captured or they're being captured or they're choosing whether they want to fight or how they want to fight or what their response is to being in their environment. And well, we're sort of seeing the capturing of Sasquatches in this, and we get a very interesting response at the end where the guy who captured them said, "I'm going to be rooting for you to some degree, and I'm going to be in the front row watching you guys fight." And so, really interesting, Not too sure if it's foreshadowing, not too sure if it's hinting at something else, what Sasquatches are, or it could just be that a guy is really fucked up in the head and he just wants to see complete carnage. Not sure.
yeah, the hunter, which is the character out of this one, he actually was created by Hanu Kelso, who's a Finnish writer. So he came up with the story in our first anthology called XCT Most Wanted, and he did a story on the Tanawa, which is a Maori like lizard man type character. So the Hunter was the character that he come up with in that, and everyone seemed to really love that character, the design of him, the actual story and all that type of stuff. So he was the character that we wanted to tell a little bit more of. So we've done another short story where he's catching the Sasquatch, or that's another name for Bigfoot type of thing. So it was really cool to show more of him, and probably him a little bit darker as well. So we got the same artist and the same writer back together to do this short story, which is really, really cool. So and again, with the colors and everything, Alex is our main artist on the ongoing series. So again, we got with his artwork and Wilson's colors, again, that ties back in. The book really feels like it's connected to the main universe.
And I just like this, and obviously, it's a fun one too. And then the last story I want to talk about is the werewolves. And I'm not too sure what's going on with this one. So, obviously, I'm not too sure if somebody is killing werewolves and then got bitten by one, or they're hunting them down, or they're getting rid of them, and I'm not exactly sure. So what is exactly going on with this? We obviously have a young kid, and it looks like he was either scratched or he's part werewolf, or what's going on, because it's very interesting to incorporate werewolves in this, and obviously we're heading into Halloween, so it's a perfect time to talk about these creatures.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of introduce the werewolves into the story. Like there's some Halloween monsters that I wanted to bring in. So we've come up with this short story where a kid is kind of remembering what's happening to him. It's really a intro into a bigger story around this character. This character is going to come into the main series. So he's actually looking for a doctor, supposedly in this small fishing village. The fishing village is got a really bad storm, so the full moon is covered and everything at the moment, and he's kind of sitting there having some food and kind of remembering what's brought him to this space. And that's a family member of his who gets locked up once a month, and then he's like, as kids do, I want to know what's going on. Goes in and finds out that his father is a werewolf, but doesn't realize that until after he puts a knife in his father's head. So to not spoil it for everyone, but so this is a short story, but this is definitely going to lead into a larger story arc, and will have an effect in the main storyline. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a heavy story in many, many ways, and a lot of jumping off points with this. So really interesting stuff going on, and obviously going through this. And what's really cool is that obviously you're the big picture guy in this, where I think it's 6 writers or it's 5 writers and 6 artists, or it's one or the other. I'm not sure exactly, but you're not writing any of this, from my understanding.
No. So I've kind of taken a step away from doing all of that, and I'm kind of I've got a few projects on the works now. So I've moved more into a project management and publishing,
and also more big picture, making sure that this fits in.
Yeah.
Definitely, going away from where you're still in the title, but handing off work and delegating and saying, hey, here's the Bible, here's the world I've built, and here are the rules. And also saying, hey, we need to get to A to B. And we have 3, books that are sort of, I don't want to call them canon, but the main storyline and some of this stuff is sort of a feeder into it. And I need you to hit points A, B, and C, or hit points A, B, and D in there, so that when we get point C, it connects, and everybody who has had this then understands why we did X. And it's very interesting. So what is that like for you? Because it is an art to understand that. And I'm not too sure what we call that, like a creative director or an editor or a storyboard expert or, the big picture guy, the watcher in Marvel's universe, for lack of a better word, and making sure that everything's working, because it is an art, especially when you have big projects. And, it can get complicated to some degree, managing and figuring out, and also giving up your baby.
Yeah, I think giving up the babies that is the hard part.
I've done it twice. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So I think that is the hard part. But I think having gone through this once with an anthology before, and having such a good experience doing that, that I was a little bit easier this time around in regards to letting people play in the universe. Having full creative control also is the other part that makes it quite easy. So there's no other owners or creators involved in XCT. So being able to say yes and no to things is and be that godlike figure is nice and easy, because you're like, I tell you what, I appreciate the work that you've done, but that does not fit in with XCT or anything like that. And one thing I will mention is
to talk about that and table that. If somebody submits something and you're not interested, do you own the story they submitted, or can they go and say, hey, I want to take it out and I want to go and do a weird Medusa story and modify it and have an entire concept where Medusa gets captured by the Romans, for instance, and she's fighting her way through the Colosseum for whatever reason? Or is it that that's in the backlog and in the vault?
That's in the backlog and in the vault. So all of our work is work for hire. So we pay all of our writers, all of our artists.
I was going to go there too.
All of our letterers, all of our colorists, so everything is work for hire. So everything, once completed and paid for, IP and everything is transferred over to me. So,
so it's not a spec play where they're submitting something, and then if they get chosen, it's you're paying, and if you don't like it, you're saying, look, I'm not publishing this, but you're paid for it as if it was published.
Correct. Yeah.
So
I'll let people submit to me their own work, so stuff they've either already had published or something that they've already written, and then I will base off what they have done whether I want them to be a part of the anthology, and if I like their style, writing and all that, and then I'll be like, yep, this is the story I want you to tell. You've got freedom to do what you want, but these are the beats of the story that you need to hit. And then when that comes back, that's when I decide, going, okay, is it strong enough? Yes, no. Does it fit for this anthology? Yes, no. And then that's what I've said. Sometimes I put some on a back burner, but then 12 to 18 months later, it's in the next anthology. So we've had that Medusa one. It kind of didn't fit in with the last story, but as the main storyline has evolved, it really fitted in and really reconnected that main storyline and felt really good in this anthology. So,
and the reason why I ask this is because, unfortunately, it gets tricky sometimes when submitting to anthologies and payments, and there's stories, and also some people, who are doing their first comic and they're happy just to submit a 2-pager just because they want their name in there, and they don't care. So if I'm to get into comics and you say, hey, you can do a 2-pager, I would do it for free, because I just want my name in something, and you just want your foot in the door sometimes, and sometimes that happens too. And then other times people don't get paid, and even though they submit it, and then they don't own it, and it becomes a whole clusterfuck, for lack of a better word. And
Look, contracts, if I can give one piece of advice on this show, is invest in a good contract. So if you do a contract once, 9 times out of 10, you're able to reuse those for when you're doing, if you do a writer one and an artist one, then you can reuse those same contracts and just change out the project title or the person's name, so on and so forth. But I've been burnt on a contract before. I didn't really understand the contract, didn't kind of invest in getting that checked, and then had been burnt on it. So if I can give one piece of advice, is actually invest in that, because if you do see a little bit of success, as you said, Andrew, it becomes very messy very quickly if it's not clear that they've been paid for.
It's a little bit different with cover artists, and I think cover artist contracts, because if you have this XTC Monsters and the variant covers killing it, I don't think your cover artist is so concerned about that. Where I don't think, because a cover is not the issue, it's more of the IP, because usually covers are not that. Now a creator might say, hey, look, I want 4 issues or 5 issues of this thing for my table. Can you help me out? That's a different discussion. And then also, you've had, I think, somebody in a contract that you released from a contract, not to be mean, but because they got a better offer too. And from, I think it was Jerry Gaylord, I want to say.
Yeah, he got picked up by Blizzard. So you're like, us or Blizzard?
But you get what I'm asking, where it's also the idea that sometimes with contracts too, it makes sense to release somebody, especially if you're getting hired by Marvel, DC, Activision, Blizzard, and all that stuff, because it's just goodwill, and that stuff comes back to you in a lot of ways, and it's always healthy, and it's tricky. And I'm obviously having somebody on the 19th. And we're going to be talking about it. He's the comic book lawyer. And then his name is slipping me. I gotta actually build his graphics after this interview. But he runs one of the groups, and he's one of those. He's teaching like legal comic class, whatever that is.
Gamal?
What?
Is that Gamal?
Yes, it is.
Yes, yeah.
He's the guy to do.
He's the guy to reach out to, mate. He gives, I think, the first does a first half an hour session or hour session for free. Is really into the comic publishing. So if you want to know anything about contracts and that, he's definitely the person to talk to.
We're going to have a very, very good discussion. I think it's not going to be controversial at all. It's just going to be real informational. And I think, and I've been wanting to have him on for almost a year now. And so I'm really excited. And I just reached out because he lets me post in his group all the time, and I let him post in mine, and it's great. Because it's useful. I wish you'd post a different video every once in a while, but that's nitpicking. Or just change the image. Do something. Like I'm just saying. But he's the guy to talk about this. So obviously he's the expert. It's going to be a great interview. But I'm glad you're actually paying artists, because people do rely on this, and it is a job for people, and it's very important. And I'm also assuming you let them know when their project is going to be published, because people get super excited about it. It's fun to see you working in books.
Yeah. And I think with us, we've now got a good reputation, because we've done that from day dot. We've now ran 15 Kickstarters. All have been successfully funded. All have been fulfilled. So then now there is that, understanding that if you come work for us, that you will get paid, that, you will be published, and that there's confidence there, and that's even what we've put on our Kickstarter page for XCT Monsters. Like, here's all the projects we've done. You can back with confidence to know that you're going to get exactly what you paid for and everything. So,
yeah, no, I think that's a big thing too right now, where having a track record matters. Unfortunately, there are people who don't have a track record, and a track record is not just fulfillment. It's also, you know, how you fulfilled, when you fulfilled, what you've done before your fulfillment. You know, it's when I launch a Kickstarter and it's coming, guys, and it's coming sooner than people think, and I don't want to go too much into it. My track record is going to matter in what I've done. There's a reason why my sponsor trusted me and paid me up front, because I am the most accessible person on the planet. Literally, they can pick up a phone and call me. They have my number. And I update them, and it's very, very important that they know that I'm not going to take the money and run. And trust is a big issue. And I've been delivering. I had one bad week, but that wasn't my fault. It wasn't their fault. And they're on an episode position, not a week position or a time position. So if I didn't do 3 interviews in a week for whatever reason, you know, that doesn't hurt them one way or the other. It's just that, cool, you get another week or so. And I think it's very important to trust in the Kickstarter community. And I also think knowing your creators and knowing who is doing what they're doing, and knowing their positions, and knowing that not necessarily you agree with them on everything, but knowing that they're a decent human being. Because I think that's a very important thing that's needing to come out in comics. I mean, the guest before spoke about this extensively.
Yeah, and I think also is if you want to work with someone, then you know, and you said before in regards to you want to come on my show, you know, actually watch some of my interviews and see what it's about and understand the platform and that type of stuff. And that's the same thing with if you want to work with a publisher or a creator, actually go out and purchase their book, read their book, understand, you know, what you're trying to pitch yourself for. It's like so interesting when sometimes I get pitches and I'm like, they totally have not read XCT, because this completely does not fit in that universe type of thing. So, you know, and especially when digital is, you know, so cheap, you can throw a couple of bucks, get a digital file, read the book and go, okay, now I know how to pitch to them because I understand their work type of thing.
It's also, and look, if you pitch to somebody, and if I'm writing a book and I'm writing, you know, your new school is the theme of the day, right? I would love to do a new school book. I love new school art. And somebody pitches me and says, oh, I get it's a new school, and here's some new school stuff I've done, but here's some other stuff I've done too, and it's a different style. That's fine as a pitch. So somebody has, you know, I don't know how we describe the style of XTC exactly. I'm sure you have a way of describing it. It's going to prove my point in 1 second. When somebody's pitching, what is the style of it versus, I mean, obviously they can't be doing My Little Pony, you know, per se, of drawing stuff, right? It can't be like Sugarcoat Plum Fairy, like glitter in the book, right? I mean,
yeah, it's very heavy shadows and very dark ink. So it's
So I'm gonna ask, because I think it's gonna get the point across, is that if somebody sends you 3 copies and they're an artist and they send you 3, you know, images of that, but then they send you a super clean, crisp, like really well done cover of Raphael that isn't necessarily that style, but they send you 3 things of that and they're saying, hey, look, I can do this too. And that's how you should pitch if you want to say, hey, look, if you're going under the motto that you name it, I can stick it, you know, you should be showing what you can do and what the style is, because that's important. I feel if I'm ever to look for an artist, I want my artist to say, if you name it, I can stick it. Because
the other good thing about doing that is then I might go, I'll tell you what, I'm not necessarily wanting them for an interior book, but damn, I like this style for another book that I've got. I would like either them to do the interiors or a cover or something like that. So being able to do that and show, okay, this is, you know, some sequential work and that kind of matches what you're asking for, but this is also what I can do. That keeps you in the mind for other projects and other work.
it's something that I think a lot of people don't understand and don't know how to do that. Where it's good to be versatile. The way I'm as an interviewer is that I can interview anybody. I legitimately have interviewed more people than in more styles and in more professions, and I know a lot of stuff. And you name it, I can interview it. And we said, if you threw me a doctor, if you threw me a wrestler, if you threw me an exotic dancer, I can do it. And it could be all of those discussions and more. And the reason why it's funny and you laugh, but that's the whole point, is that being that versatile matters right now tremendously. And versatility is so important in so many ways. And obviously, I was gonna mention one upping you about knowing who you're speaking to. Also, guys, I'm not the colorist, and Shaun's not the artist. I want to make that crystal clear, because I get emails from people saying, "Would you like me to color your books?" And my response to those is, "Yes, please do, but I'm a podcaster. I'm not too sure how this is gonna work." They don't usually get back to me. They give me a page rate and they don't usually get back to me. And I just think it's funny but it's the idea that also, and I'm not going to go embarrass somebody who just did it, but they're like, yeah, I worked on this and then I, did this. And they mentioned somebody that I interviewed 6 months ago. And I'm like, you don't know that I interviewed this person 6 months ago? Like, I get that I do a lot of interviews, but you didn't dig deep enough. It's a problem. So obviously a lot of stuff's going on, and before we get into the rewards, and there's not that many on this Kickstarter. There really isn't. What can people expect with the XTC Monsters book and the XTC world going forward? Because it is getting very interesting, and this world is growing in a lot of ways.
So we've got some major projects coming up over the next 12 months. So we've got XCT Infinity Issue 2, which is a crossover with a video game company, which is kind of cool. We launched the first issue of that crossover last year. We're relaunching XCT Most Wanted. We've gone back and recolored that and remastered that, because it was, as I mentioned earlier, it was just black and white. So that's going to come early next year. And then we've got volume 5 of the main story that's in the works as well. So we're just a little bit delayed with that. The artist Alex that I mentioned before got picked up by Ubisoft. So I've been great in being able to work with all these amazing artists, but when they go to that next echelon, I can't seem to hold on to them, unfortunately. But that's a good problem to have. So we're just looking at.
It is a good problem to have. It's better than your artist getting killed or charged with it.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's one of those problems is good. It's
so a lot more with XCT to come. So.
And then obviously I want to get into some of these rewards. And no, I do not have a live read. I'm getting another one's coming, guys. Another one's coming. Maybe tomorrow. It's gonna just be snuck right in there. But obviously you got a bunch of rewards with this, and so you got a digital bundle. And there's some cool stuff where there's Talos of Sparta, there's Sneaky Goblins and Gauge, the Dragon tier. And then, so obviously digital, send right to your email. No shipping. It's relatively affordable for what you're getting. And then with the physical stuff, obviously there's an issue 1 or the volume 1, I would say, or maybe this is volume 2 at this point. I'm not too sure. It's XTC Monsters. There we go. I got it on like the 9th try. Okay, you get 10 tries, guys. You get 10 tries. And then there's also the variant. And so I'm going to show this. So I think this is the regular cover, unless it's this is the main cover, and then I think this is the variant.
Yeah.
And this is definitely IDW, straight up IDW. Let's be realistic here. We all know what this is.
So that's done by Megan Hung, who actually just announced she did a variant cover for Star Wars for IDW today. So I'm very lucky to have her as the variant cover artist on this one. So.
And then there's the original art. Obviously, we sort of teased it before. There's the whole physical collection. There's a physical variant collection. There's like another physical variant collection, and pretty much anything within the XTC universe you can get at this point. And I'm sure that if something is not there and you want it, I'm sure that they could reach out to you and something can be arranged.
Yeah.
With anything really from this. I mean, I don't know the full XTC universe, but pretty much anything somebody wants, it can be put together.
Yeah, I think the add-on function that Kickstarter released last year is just fantastic for that. So we can kind of add on if people just want a single issue that's not available there. We can add that on in the add-on section, and then you can just add that on to whatever order that you pick. So we've done that with a couple of items, like we've got a special sketch cover, a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, and a T-shirt type of thing. So you can just add that on to any type of reward level that you want there.
And that's also helpful because obviously if you're in the US, it's the idea go big or go home because shipping is difficult. And, also people want cool stuff and, people want like sketch covers, and I'm a big sketch cover guy because I have a bunch of them. Just went through a bunch of them. I think I got like 70 of them. And you never know when they're going to come in handy. You never know.
Yeah.
Beyond useful. In fact, if I go to a con, I might have a lot of fun with some sketch stuff. And if I meet enough artists, especially if it's an indie thing, and then I know a bunch of them, we're gonna have a lot of fun with some stuff. I have an idea that's gonna be a blast of an idea for a panel at my panel. Anyway, I'm gonna give some away, and I'm gonna have people do some really cool stuff on a sketch cover for me and give them away just to have a blast. Especially if you get sketch covers cheaply, and I know where to get them cheaply. And then also you have create your own cover, so that's always cool too, and that's a cool option. And obviously, you can have a lot of fun. And if you're creating your own cover, person whoever backs that has a lot of input in what they want.
Yeah, so we did this for the first time on our last campaign, the 13th Labor, and we had the two people back it. We had them drawn into the cover, so both of those people as brand new characters, and then I had the main character from the series, and all three of them were fighting goblins and everything. So it was really cool what people come up with. So we thought, it'd be great to offer this as well as a reward tier. Something really exclusive. Christmas is coming up, so to be able to maybe get yourself drawn into a cover and then hand that around to all your family and friends for a Christmas gift is kind of a cool idea as well. So we've got two of those available.
Oh, I have a million ideas for it. especially, oh man, I'll tell you off air. It's really brilliant, and at some point I'm going to wind up doing it. But anyway, I don't want to give anybody any ideas yet. And steal my ideas. I'm very selfish. When I have good ideas, guys, some of them come out, some of them don't. And then obviously that's everything that's going on. So there's a lot of choice, and also you can spend a little bit of money, you can spend a lot of money, and then backer kit and the add-on function also has a lot to it as well and gives a lot of freedom on it. And so there's a lot of stuff, and there's something for everybody in these rewards. And especially if you don't want to pay the shipping, because, well, shipping, as I stated, is very difficult. And so if you just say, hey, look, I want the book digitally, and well, that solves the shipping problem, saves you money. So on that note, I do want to back out of your Kickstarter, and I want to talk about where conventions are going, because you guys are screwed in Australia. You are screwed, okay? But I'm saying it with a positive attitude, okay? We're saying the glass is half full here, where you're in serious lockdown mode. All jokes aside, it's pretty brutal down in Australia, and it is not. And then COVID is not going well, and lockdowns, and nobody's leaving the country so quickly. So
yeah.
What
No,
has this been like? Because you guys were free, then you weren't, then you were free again, and then you weren't, and then you were semi-free, then you went all the way free, and you went back to the draconian dark ages, then you put the lights back on, and then you played some video games. You got to go to the liquor store before they shut everything back down, and here we are.
that's pretty accurate, mate. To be honest, so I'm in Melbourne, so we're actually in our 7th lockdown over 2 years. So I was lucky enough to get to 2 conventions that during that period that we were open. So I got to do one in my hometown in Melbourne, and
The Prime Minister took a vacation, right?
Yeah, yeah. He's just gotten back from the land of the US, so he's back in the country again. But I think that's why I've transferred to Kickstarter. So last year we did 5 Kickstarters. This year we're going to do 4 Kickstarters. Next year I've got probably about 6 Kickstarters planned. So I've kind of shifted away from the conventions to Kickstarter to generate that income and generate that interest around what I do. But I'm hoping by the end of the year that November looks like when we'll start to open up again. The vaccination side of things have really ramped up here over the last 2 to 3 months. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel there.
So to even talk about this, because obviously, and there's a lot of shifting going on and a lot of writings on the wall. I don't know when I'm ever going to go back to a convention, if I ever do want to go back. I kind of like being on the internet. I am way more influential. I can do it from my house, and I have a lot more time to make. I'm not going to pretend. I have a pretty good writing schedule. I mean, I tried a different writing schedule this weekend, and I did double writing this weekend, and it was fantastic. And I wrote basically all my interviews in a very short amount of time, and I have a lot of freedom. And when I go to a con and I'm doing a panel, I'm not getting paid. I am lecturing. I'm getting a free badge, but I'm not really influencing anything. And it's cool. I like talking about like old school anime and Attack on Titan and comic book investing and sports and anime. But here I'm actually doing something, and I'm actually influential, and I'm reaching more people than I've ever reached in my life. And I don't want to go back. So where do you think Kickstarter is going with that? Because some people want to go back, and I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to get flack for it, but I think they're wrong. I think the model. And I think crowdfunding is oversaturated, and I think that it can't support itself, because when you have 260 projects on Kickstarter at one point, there's not enough money. Okay, I back 1 project a month. Okay, and I pick, and maybe I'll back 2 if it's like a $10 project. But guess what? Most people I interview, I don't back your project, not because I don't want to, because I can't afford it. There's only so much you can milk a cow before you kill it, and the thing is going to have to go in regression. I mean, it has to, because it can't support itself.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to, getting people on the platform that necessarily weren't on the platform before. So you've got someone like Keanu Reeves, which is able to bring in a whole different audience onto Kickstarter.
You're a wrestling fan, right?
Before. Yep.
I'm going to ask you a question that's related to this. How do you feel about Ronda Rousey?
I liked her for a period of time.
I'll ask you a different question with her. We're going to get there. Do you think she was good for WWE?
No.
Right. Do you think Keanu Reeves is good for Kickstarter?
Yes.
See, this is where we're going, and we're going to disagree, but we're all adults in the room. I think Keanu Reeves, Scott Snyder, Jeff Lemire, Charles Soule, Ryan Brown, as far as content creation, Boom Studios, is not good for Kickstarter in the long run. Now, I think they have a right to be there, and I don't think they did anything wrong in content creation, but I think they've caused a lot of problems because they brought a bunch of air in the room, raised all tides artificially, and then everybody's like, this is great. This is fantastic. Everybody did great for about 6 months on Kickstarter. Then that thing fell apart, and nobody realized that that was the time to captivate and double down and triple down and quadruple down and use every tool you had in those 6 months to capture as many eyes on in your email list as humanly possible. And I think, people didn't realize that a lot of air comes in waves, and then the next time this is going to happen is in 3-4 years, but the landscape is going to be shifted. And that's why I say that I don't think they were good for Kickstarter, because I think it was a short amount of time that nobody knew how to react to it, and a bunch of air was brought in, and it was the biggest missed opportunity in crowdfunding. And looking back, nobody in comics wants to talk about it. And then I think there has to be a serious conversation. You don't ban them, but you have to understand the error. And I don't think people have understood the error of what happened with those people, because it was a missed opportunity. And everybody in comics missed the boat, undeniably.
I think if you look at it from Kickstarter's point of view, how many independent creator comics Kickstarters need to be run for them to earn the same amount of money off one project run by Keanu Reeves and Boom Studios?
Oh, no. I think it was great for business. I'm not talking about the business of Kickstarter, because I agree completely with that, because they got their 7%.
From an independent side, I find that if there's more people on Kickstarter and looking at projects that were not on there before, then that gives me an opportunity to sell to more people. I don't know. I think there's cons and pros for it. The analogy with Ronda Rousey for me was that WWE and UFC already has like a bit of a clash in regards to it being real and being fake.
My point about Ronda was the following: is that she brought a lot of air, and the women's division was centered around her, Charlotte, and Becky. And it worked, because you had Charlotte Flair legacy, you had the upcoming last kicker, Becky, who was red hot. You have Ronda.
I know, but did it bring any UFC watchers across to watch?
So I don't think they were targeting UFC. WWE wasn't going after UFC. They were going after mainstream. That's who it brought in. Now, what it did is that now, after Mania and Ronda leaves and hasn't been back, we created a big gap, because they put 50 to 60% on Ronda. No question about it. Becky and Charlotte weren't carrying that. I mean, that's a huge thing. And it left their women's division fucked up for 8 to 10 months. And that's the analogy, is that Keanu...
That's what happens, mate, when you have a baby. You can't do nothing for 8 to 10 months, mate.
No. I agree completely. But the idea is that you basically took massive amount of press, and then that way that would be redistributed, and WWE really didn't do anything for 8 months. So, and their women's division suffered for a while because of it. And that's the analogy, is that when you bring a lot of air and hype into something, then that air dissipates the same way it came in, you create problems. But I think that if that's the new model, I like Boom being in Kickstarter. I like big companies. The He-Man game, I got no problem with whoever's doing that on Kickstarter. I think it's kind of cool. I enjoy it. I back big books like that. I backed the curse word books because it was cheap to back it on Kickstarter. It was cool to back it. I was part of a crew. I was part of a community. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I think it has to be publicly acknowledged that it caused just as much damage, if not more, as it brought in the pros. Undeniably, in my opinion. Now, I've never run a Kickstarter. That's my opinion, and that's what I've analyzed. And I just saw the economics, and I see it now looking back, and hindsight's 2020. But that's how I view it, and I sort of did it the same way. And look, I'm not saying that it shouldn't have happened, it should be banned. I say the market determines everything, and everybody has to be smart enough to know how to adapt to the market.
100%.
But I think it was brilliant for Kickstarter. Kickstarter made bank as a company. They made bank on it. Oh my God, brilliant, brilliant by Kickstarter. But anyway, we got off on a tangent, so I'm curious, getting back onto the tracks here, where do you see like Kickstarter going? Because as I was stating, I kind of see it as the future. I'm part of the great digitalization pivot. I don't want to go back. And maybe it's personal to me because I'm now in this business. And now I'm actually doing, and I have a sponsorship and I'm doing live reads and all that stuff. And I'm making money in this for the first time since I started this in like 2012. So 9 years, and this is the first time I'm making money. And it's because of the digital pivot, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think with any tools, if depending on how many tools you use is going to determine how successful you are. So if you just want to use digital and just want to use Kickstarter, then you'll reach a certain level of success. But if you decide to use Kickstarter and conventions, then you will reach another level of success. If you use Kickstarter, conventions, and mainstream distribution, then you're going to reach another level of success. So I think it's about what tools that you use rather than where is Kickstarter going, or where are you going as an individual. I think it's about how you use those tools moving forward in regards to where you can go as a creator, and your success is linked to that. So
And I also think it's also knowing your audience, and also there's a million tools on Facebook, and it's the idea that sometimes in certain projects you might make more money selling directly to your consumer than you would through distribution, and it's understanding, and that's why this is so interesting, is that sometimes it makes sense to be in comic shops, and other times it doesn't, and it's such an interesting world that we're in right now. And obviously, when I say I'm part of the great digitalization pivot, I'm not talking about necessarily digital comics and just doing digital comics. I'm talking about having an online presence, because I think that's going to dictate everything. I think
oh, definitely. Yeah.
I think that's the future. I think whether you're selling on eBay or Shopify or I don't know, another website store or Amazon or whatever, even just comicsology. I just think that's the future. I think I can reach more people than I could reach more people online for the same amount it would cost me to buy a table at a con.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I've found over the last 12 months, with COVID and everything, is that if you reinvest that money that you paid on a table on advertising online, you're actually able to, as you were saying before, you're actually able to target your market much better than at a convention, because really you're spraying and praying at a convention. Like, yes, they get 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people through the doors, but are all of them interested in mythological battle type stories? No. But I can go onto Facebook and say, I want to target 20,000 people that like mythology, historical drama, and that type of thing. Like,
you could even target them without even doing ads. You could
yeah,
just go into a group that just loves this shit, and boom. And then you could go create your own group that wants this stuff, and you don't even
yeah,
tell them about your comic. And you put in Spartacus, war weapons, and MMA group, for instance, or you could go create a group. I have 247 members in a group right now who are all indie and podcasting people. I threw up, my live read, from the one before, and I got that person like 7 backers in a minute. In a minute, okay, and they paid me. I'm the first person to say this, but I legitly made them back their money before they even did the live read by putting up their thing in a group. It's insane what you can do.
yeah. It's funny because I'm in quite a few groups, because I've got different projects. I'm in different groups for different things. So I've got a cyberpunk dystopian series. So I'm in like a couple of sci-fi, cyberpunk groups, and I'll post in those about that graphic novel. But then, as you just said, this book's got Spartacus in it, so I'm like in that Spartacus mythology, historical type groups as well, and I post about that project. So again, it's all about understanding your audience, where your audience is, and then marketing towards that.
And so it's so interesting, and I love Facebook. And then I'm not gonna lie, I think Facebook is the greatest thing. I think that people don't know how to utilize it. I think Twitter is great too. I think Instagram is fun as well. They all have a purpose for me. And again, I don't want to go back, because going back into an environment where it is impossible for me to make money to an environment where I legitimately can make a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, well, what would you choose, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? And especially when you're making money for the first time, it's a lot of fun. And so that's where I'm at. But again, it's not about me. So obviously, I do want to give you, we've been speaking for a while, and I want to give you an opportunity to self-promote. We covered a lot of stuff. Some of it good, some of it bad. Obviously, I don't know where you stand on Star Wars Episode 5. Clearly, the Empire was right, and you might be off my friend list in an hour.
Played the fifth.
Clearly. So, obviously, joking aside, because it's called comedy, where can people back the Kickstarter? Where can people pick up some of your work? Where can people find it? And obviously get digital bundles and all that stuff, because as well as follow you on Facebook and interact with you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't know if you're on TikTok, Snapchat, Hummingbird. Yes,
just got onto TikTok. That's a whole new world I'm trying to understand.
I gave up on TikTok, so don't feel bad. And you're older than me, so if I gave up on it, it's not for me. I got enough things to deal with.
Yeah.
I don't feel like TikTok and going down Dorothy's, Wizard of Oz shit.
Yeah, well, it's nice and easy. You can find me literally on every platform as Comics, the number 2 movies. So we're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Our Facebook is Comics to Movies, and we've also got a website, www.comicstomovies.com.au. My name is Shaun Keenan. You can reach out to me directly as well on Facebook. I've got a lot of creators that I deal with and help, with their Kickstarters. XCT, so XCT Monsters is on Kickstarter at the moment. We have 24 days left of the Kickstarter. We're about 75% funded. And, as always, with this crowdfunding type of thing, any support is helpful, whether that is pledging or actually just sharing the campaign around. So thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate it, and I hope people got a little bit out of it as well. So
yeah, I hope people got a little bit out of it, or at least they were entertained.
Yeah,
one or the other. If they got educated and entertained at the same time, that'd be phenomenal. But I've been saying it, and I'm going to continue to say it, you have to support indie. And what that means is that people run Kickstarters, and if you have to back them, and whether it's digital or physical, I get that a bunch of people are in the US, some are in Australia, obviously across the world. But a digital, bundle, it goes a long way. Every dollar matters, every dollar counts, and it is so important to back Kickstarters, because we're not DC, we're not Marvel, we're not Image, indie comic creators, and especially in comics, every dollar goes to printing, goes to paying artists, goes to lettering, goes to doing some other stuff, the stretch goals. Sometimes it goes to the next issue. Sometimes it pays back the first issue. Money, it gets tight, and it's not easy, going to a con, some of that sometimes goes into shipping. And so it's an amazing way how to support, because every dollar goes into the project. And even going further, one of the things is that, let's say this is not your cup of tea, and not every project a creator creates is going to be for you. You can still go out and share it, because you don't know who's watching your wall on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anywhere else you're at. Or you could just mention it in like a Twitch stream or an interview, And you never know who's watching. It's happened on this show a bunch of times where somebody goes and I'm talking about it, somebody shares the interview live, doing me just say, oh yeah, I'll just share it on my wall. And they're like, oh snap, you know, I'm backing it out. Or they didn't even know, it just popped up because I shared it on my wall and they're like, oh, this looks like an awesome project. I'm friends with this person. I'm going to go back their project and I'm going to go read their
Yeah.
comment. I didn't even know this came about because, well, algorithms are complicated. So sharing goes a long way too. And in many cases, it is just as important. You know, I was speaking before that, obviously I did a live read and I just shared it into my group and a bunch of people backed it. And a bunch more people are probably going to back it because of that interview and they saw it and they're checking it out and they're like, oh, this looks awesome. And so it goes a long, long way because
Yep.
you don't know who's checking something out. So super, super important in that regard. And I think that's something that has to be done. And obviously following people on social media too, you know, following your Twitter, following the Facebook, checking out your website, obviously the Instagram and all that stuff, because you might not be doing a comic today that they like, but tomorrow you might be doing their favorite comic. And if you're informed and you're obviously in email lists and Twitter and Facebook, you'll be knowing when those books drop. So that's very important as well. Also, I am an indie content creator. It is no secret that obviously I have a sponsor and they do a lot of stuff for me, and obviously they paid me money and that helped to get a bunch of stuff done on this show and keep it going for season 3. But running a podcast is not cheap. I have Buy Me a Coffee. I have a bunch of perks, whether that's including a live read or a guest spot on my show, and you could pick one or both of those, and obviously all that goes right into helping fund this show and keep it going. And obviously the more money I have, the longer this thing can go onward. I will say that those rates are going to be raised up or possibly eliminated for about 6 months starting on November 1st. So if you buy now, those rates are locked in. But on November 1st, and that should give somebody some inclination of why that might come about, those are either going to be raised or eliminated. And things are changing. And so obviously if you're watching at this point, that's something you might want to pay attention to. But enough about me. I'm going to give you the final word because we've been speaking for an hour and a half and it is sore and I have Jello waiting for me in my refrigerator that it looks yummy with junior mints that have orange and chocolate in them. So that is your cue to give us the final word.
Well, thanks so much for watching today, guys. If you get a chance, check out XCT Monsters on Kickstarter today, or head over to www.comicstomovies.com.au to follow the story there. Have a great night.
And that's a wrap.